Hello everyone. Here's a scoop. They lit up the London Leicester Square Ramadan and suddenly saw Islamophobic mindset losing their minds. A few are screaming Islamophobic comments and comparing it to some Easter lights thing. Can you believe it? Have you ever seen Easter lights before? Because I haven't. But wait, there is more. You got to see this. Alex Phillips goes on a rant about Christianity getting sidelined because of the Ramadan lights during Easter.
And look, this is the capital city of the United Kingdom, a Christian country. That is still our state religion, whether you follow it or not. And we've got a big Islamic festival being celebrated on the main, most important thoroughfares. This is just insane. What message is this saying to Christians? What message is this sending to the world? And I'm just so fed up. I've ranted about this already, that I feel that there's one religion being forced down our throats.
I mean, come on, Alex, really? And then there is a Professor Richard Dawkins. He is talking about mosques popping up everywhere across Europe and swearing he would pick Christianity over Islam any day.
Slightly horrified to hear that Ramadan is being promoted instead. I do think that we are culturally a Christian country. I call myself a cultural Christian. I'm not a believer, but there's a distinction between being a believing Christian and being a cultural Christian. And so, I love hymns and Christmas carols, and I sort of feel at home in the Christian ethos. I feel that we are a Christian country in that sense. It's true that statistically the number of people who actually believe in Christianity is going down, and I'm happy with that. But I would not be happy if, for example, we lost all our cathedrals and our beautiful parish churches. So I count myself a cultural Christian. I think it wouldn't matter if we substituted any alternative religion. That would be truly dreadful. I mean, if I had to choose between Christianity and Islam, I choose Christianity every single time. I mean, it seems to me to be a fundamentally decent religion, in a way that I think Islam is not. The way women are treated, I mean, Christianity is not great about that. It's had its problems with female vicars and female bishops and things. But there's an active hostility to women, which is promoted, I think, by the holy books of Islam. I'm not talking about individual Muslims, who, of course, are quite different. But the doctrines of Islam, the Hadith and the Quran, is fundamentally hostile to women, hostile to gays, and I find that I like to live in a culturally Christian country, although I do not believe a single word of the Christian faith.
What a twist, right? I will leave it to you to decide if that's a lot of hogwash or no. Now the man, the legend, the Mehdi Hasan is stepping into the ring to knock some sense into this circus. Let's face it, when Mehdi speaks, even the gods of debate take notes, so he steps into the drop some truth bomb like a boss.
I thought a lot of things. I mean, me and Richard Dawkins go way back. We've been sparring for over a decade. I interviewed him on my then Al Jazeera show back in 2012 about religion. And a few things come to mind. Number one, for years, his supporters and he told me and others, we don't hate Islam. We're not picking on Islam. We hate all religions. And people like me would say, not sure we believe you. And I think there was confirmation of that on Sunday with Rachel Johnson, where he made it very clear. He likes Christianity a lot. He doesn't like Islam a lot. So I'm glad that cat's out of the bag. Finally, it's taken about 12 years for people to catch up. I would also say I wasn't surprised by what he said, because I've been following his career and he's been very anti-Islam for a while. This is a man who's called Islam a cancer, who said Islam is the greatest force for evil in the world. He says in that clip, I distinguish between Islam and Muslims, but of course, he's also said stuff like, who the hell do these Muslims think they are? He once called for me to be fired from the New Statesman because I believe in Islamic beliefs, which he then had to retract and apologize for. So he has a long history. He has form on this subject, Anushka. The third thing I'd say is the number of falsehoods in that entire exchange. Since when is Ramadan being promoted over Easter? Where's the evidence for that? There's zero evidence of that. LBC in its tweet yesterday referred to Easter lights not being up, but Ramadan lights being up. I haven't lived in the UK for 9 years, Anushka, but I did live there for 36 years before then. I don't remember seeing any Easter lights at Oxford Street.
That's a very good point. What are Easter lights?
I know they're Christmas lights. I don't know what Easter lights are. So this is a bit of a fake row. This is a private endeavor. It's not from the government. It's not from Mayor Khan. It's not from the GLA. And look, why aren't we celebrating all religions? My Jewish cousins had Hanukkah in Trafalgar Square in December. There was a massive menorah and Hanukkah lights. Number one, great, I love it. We should have more of that. Number two, I don't remember Richard Dawkins or others in the right-wing media kicking up a fuss about that. And if Jeremy Corbyn had come out and said, I'm very unhappy about this menorah display in Trafalgar Square, you and your colleagues, Anushka, would rightly be all over him. So why are we not criticizing Richard Dawkins for this? Because Islamophobia is much more acceptable these days, sadly, than any other kind of bigotry towards religious communities. Let's be very clear about the Islamophobia here. This is not a coincidence. People are attacking Sadiq Khan for being the Muslim mayor of London, including his Tory rival. You have a Muslim First Minister of Scotland. You do have a lot of mosques being built, as Rachel ominously referred to in that clip, and people get very upset with change. They don't like the idea of, Muslims are coming, Sharia law takeover, all this nonsense that right-wing media has fed over the years. I think Kit Kat's been attacked recently for doing something about Ramadan in the UK. It's all very, this is not a coincidence. As for cultural Christianity, Richard Dawkins trying to have his cake and eat it. As you say, he wrote The God Delusion. He spent years attacking organized religion. And now he says, well, I quite like the bits that involve singing and architecture. Those bits, can we keep? Well, first of all, again, I question the premise. He says, I don't want to lose our cathedrals. Are we losing cathedrals, Anushka? I don't live in the UK. You work for ITV News. Have you done a breaking news story about cathedrals being dismantled in front of our eyes? I quite like cathedrals too. By the way, I'm more pro-Christianity than he is. I love Jesus. I'm totally for Christians going to church. He's the one who spent years attacking religion, and now he's like, well, people don't go to church and churches are empty. Whose fault is that, Richard Dawkins? Maybe it's yours. Maybe you should look in the mirror about why people aren't turning up to church. I don't see why Muslims get blamed for Christians not turning up to church anymore. I find that very odd. It's very, very worrying. Everyone I speak to in the UK, from what I'm watching from afar, it's very worrying when you have, for example, the former Home Secretary saying Islamists run Britain, and you have the former Vice Chair of the Tory party saying Sadiq Khan has handed over London to his Islamist mates. Again, let's just remind ourselves, we wouldn't tolerate this language about any other religion or faith community or minority. If Zach Goldsmith had beaten Sadiq Khan and was the Jewish mayor of London, and somebody in the Labour Party went out and said he's handed over London to his Zionist friends, we would be up in arms, and rightly so. You cannot just push around these kind of lazy, racist, bigoted tropes. And look, when Richard Dawkins says Islam is hostile to women and gays, number one, making a sweeping claim about billions of people is the definition of bigotry. And number two, he says Christianity is a fundamentally decent religion. I agree with him, it is. But every religion has its extremists. Come to the United States, where I am. See what Christian nationalist politicians are doing on the abortion front, how they're criminalizing women and risking their lives. Go to Africa and see what the Christian church is doing to gay communities in Africa. Every religion has its extremists and bigots. Every religion is grappling with this stuff. Don't just pick on Islam, for God's sake. You want to quote the Bible or the Quran, let's do it all day long. That's not what Richard Dawkins did, though, is it? Richard Dawkins went on LBC yesterday and in front of millions of people, this eminent biologist said Christianity is a fundamentally decent religion and Islam is not. Again, if he had gone on the radio and said Christianity is a decent religion and Judaism is not, I think you would have seen a much bigger backlash. We have normalized bigotry towards Islam in a way that we haven't against other faith communities. And I just think, we should be able to have those conversations, Anushka. I've had those conversations. I've written about homophobia and Islam. I've written about misogyny in Islam. So I've had those conversations. What you don't do is you don't say Christianity is great for women, just has a few problems with female vicars. Islam, meanwhile, has a hostility towards all women. That's BS. You cannot make these sweeping statements. You cannot pretend one religion has some amazing record and the other religion doesn't, and rank these religions in these ways. And if you do, you need to bring much more evidence to the table than the great evidence-based Richard Dawkins bothered to bring.
So what do you think? Did he nail it? You bet he did. So what is the final say, friends? Was Mehdi's logical argument as sharp as a knife? Or are we still just scratching the surface of the whole mess? Let me know in the comments down below. Till the next video, take care and goodbye.